Welcome to the Bear Cave. Today, we're going to be doing a mock off season. We're going to go through kind of re-signing the players that are free agents on the Bears, people that we are cutting to save cap space. We're going to do a mock free agency and then a mock draft to build off all of that. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're really excited. This is something we've worked on for the past, I guess, last week. We had an issue with the file corrupted, and we are not able to get the original offseason out. So let's get it going. Let's not keep you waiting. The first move that we are making in free agency, well, I guess for the Bears free agents, is we're going to be re-signing Jack Sanborn. Sanborn is a player who was, I believe, a UDFA a couple years ago and has really played above what they expected out of him. I don't know what they expected out of UDFA, but he's a player that can play well. It's not that he's an athlete, but he has a nose for the ball. And in my opinion, Tremaine Edmonds hasn't played to the level that you want. TJ Edwards has played above his contract. Sanborn is your third linebacker for, 2.4 million over 2 years is, I think, a pretty reasonable deal.
No, absolutely. And like we say, the thing about it is now with those Dennis Allen early packages, sometimes you're going to want that extra linebacker on the field. And for not a lot of money and to be that run stuffer, that's exactly what we're re-signing Jack Sanborn for. So, and ideally, if he can stay healthy, be out there on the field, I feel like that's pretty good money for what we'd expect from him and where he could play far above the value if we get him to actually stay healthy the whole season.
Right. And I think that was kind of the main thing when we were looking at, what free agents do we want to bring back from the Bears? Because I don't know if it's been decided yet, but I would argue that most Bears fans are pretty content on not bringing back Keenan Allen. He's just not the player he was. And when you already have so much invested in Romo Dunze and DJ Moore, you can spend the money elsewhere.
Well, 1,000%. And I think, as we'll get into later, there are options where again they're not Keenan Allen, but they can display a different skill set than Keenan has, where it's more of a wide variety of what the Bears need right now. Like you're saying, like what we expect Rome to grow into. It's kind of like you don't need to keep two guys that you expect to have similar skill sets to that play similar styles. You want to have a variety of guys that can complement each other well, and especially with Keenan aging, it just makes no sense when there's other guys who we'll get into that we spent the money on instead.
The next, we're going to bring back Matt Pryor, who is an offensive guard for the Bears. Now, Pryor is not anything crazy, and he wasn't very good when they played at tackle, but he's someone that has, four position flexibility. I'm not sure you're playing him at center, but he can play either guard spot. In a pinch, he can play the tackle spot. And the reality is the Bears have a long way to go in their offensive line. Tevin Jenkins is probably walking. That's someone that we can talk about a little bit, like how much he's played. Like, don't look at his games played or games started. You need to look at how many quarters he's played because he'll come out of games way more often than you would like. And Pryor was essentially the starting right guard once Nate Davis went down. And I would argue he wasn't the biggest issue on the line, not even close to it. So I think bringing back Pryor on a cheaper deal is something that the Bears should look into, especially when, later in this year, you really started to see the issues with the depth.
Well, absolutely. That's just the bottom line, Hunter. Depth, depth, depth. And we said about the trenches. If we take care of the line, everything's going to
We'll
be
be
just
fine.
fine.
Yep.
And that is the bottom line. Like Hunter, we can make a whole song out of it. Look, you take care of the trenches, everything else will kind of fall in place. Something the Bears have neglected for so long. Something we are not going to allow any longer. At least if the all season's in our hands.
No.
The O-line depth is essential. It doesn't matter if they're the best player in the world. It is about having depth and guys that can step in if necessary. And to your point, that's exactly what Pryor is. So we had to keep him on the boat.
Something to mention here is the Bears start out with about 65 million in cap space. I added the draft picks, which actually may be less because Ian Cunningham, I believe, is right now the favorite to be the GM of the Jacksonville Jaguars, which would net the Bears 2/3, one this year, one next year. So that number may be a little bit higher, but right now it's taken about 10 million away. The next player that we are going to bring back is Bill Murray. And I have Bill Murphy, but it's Bill Murray. And he was someone who the Bears played, and he wasn't horrible. And to me, this is like you can get him for $1 million, like someone that the Bears liked, and you know he's nothing more than an end of roster depth piece for the O line.
Well, I was just going to say, there's not much to say on this one other than, yeah, exactly. But depth and depth that is trusted, has been in the building. You have to keep on. You have to hold on to it when you have it.
All right, last player right now, Patrick Scales, long snapper. You need a long snapper. Bring him back for 2 years, 2.4 million, 1.2 a year. I mean, I don't think that is. I don't know how you can argue with this. You need a long snapper.
No, yes, certainly, and that's what that's not. We're not overspending or anything. You got to spend a little, right? You got to get your long snapper. So exactly what we did. Got to hold on to him.
So we opted against signing Coleman Shelton back. Now, me and you talked about this, like Bears fans' idea of what Coleman Shelton is and who Coleman Shelton is are two different things. Shelton actually played pretty okay after he got his feet underneath him the first half of the season. And he is a little bit undersized, so he's prone to getting just kind of run over sometimes. But me and Dobbs talked about it a decent amount. There's probably going to be a team that's more that is willing to pay Coleman Shelton more than the Bears are willing to pay him.
No, yeah, we had to talk about this one extensively because, yeah, like at first I wanted to hold on to him, but then you kind of brought up the idea that idea where, yeah, it's true. Like for what he's going to be worth. That's the thing is because in an ideal world you can get him for super cheap, but that's kind of back to your point about you're saying, Hunter, about how he's different than a lot of Bears fans think. Like, and this is kind of like we were talking about in the corrupted recording, like we're in kind of a center deficit right now. Like really, if there's one position in the league that there's not a ton of, like really you look across the board and you're like, wow, there's not a lot of just like stars at that position right now. It really is the center position. And again, I'm not saying Coleman Shelton's a star. What I am saying though is there will be teams that will pay him I don't want to say above average, but at least average starter money.
Whereas like I don't want to pay Coleman Shelton $6 million a year. I don't want to pay him $5 million a year, and that's probably what you'll pay him.
No, some team who is desperate, and there are probably more than half the teams in the league I'd even say right now, and I'll say it for sure a fourth that would pay him more than the Bears are going to pay him. So it's just, and again, if we're signing him for depth, what's the point versus right another team they could?
Because ideally, you don't want him to be your starting center, and you can make the argument that we re-signed Pryor to a 1-year, $5.2 million deal. The issue is Pryor's meant to be a depth piece that can be your swing O-line, your swing interior guy, and can play tackle in a pinch. Coleman Shelton, the money you're going to be giving him, he's only going to play center, and he's ideally not your starter. So it's kind of like Pryor to me is more worth the money than what you get for Shelton because you don't want to sign Coleman Shelton to another 1-year deal. Like that's a position you need to fix for the long term.
No, absolutely. And fret not, Bears fans. We cooked a little something we'll get into later as far as the center position goes.
So that before we move on, this is the last point. When the Bears traded that 5th round pick for Ryan Bates, he was in competition to be the center as opposed to Coleman Shelton. Now, he was injured all of last year. And he's under contract this year. And if you cut him, I believe you save $4 million. But it's like you already have the pick invested. You have the O-line depth there. Like whether he's the starter this year or not, at least you have someone who was competing for that position on the roster from last year.
No, absolutely. And it's the pick spent more than anything. You don't want to cut. Then you're just the money you gain, the pick you lost. It just evens out. You might as well hold on to him for the depth.
I wouldn't be. I'm willing to bet Ryan Bates is more likely to be on the roster than Coleman Shelton, but I could also see a scenario where neither of them are with the team after this year.
Oh, I agree with that 100%, though.
All right. Finally done with the re-signings. Now, there's probably going to be more re-signings. It's probably going to be reserved contracts, future contracts, and a roster guys. Unless you think Keenan Allen's coming back. Next, we have DeAndre Swift, and we're trading him to the Cowboys for a 5th round compensatory pick, which is honestly probably too high. But at the end of the day, it saves the Bears $6.5 million. And I got involved with it a little bit. I only tweeted once, but someone was like, as much as people hate Swift, he's a starting running back, and without him, you don't have one on your roster. Well, if you get this pick, You get the third rounder from Ian Cunningham. You have a first, 2 seconds, 2 thirds, 2 fifths, a sixth, and 2 sevenths, I believe. You can find 2 starting running backs in there. And don't forget, you have Ian Wheeler and Roshan Johnson as complimentary guys.
No, and people talk about this all the time, like you're saying with the whole running back thing with the Bears. But here's my thing, Hunter, again, back to the motto. You take care of the line.
You'll
Everything
be
else will be
just fine.
you can every running back is a starting running back behind a good line. You got to realize, guys.
All right. Next, our move is to release Dominique Robinson. It's going to save us about 1.1 million. He is a wide receiver converted to a D end who, let's be honest, the experiment just has not worked out. I don't blame Poles for taking a chance on the experience or experiment. I think from my understanding, wasn't that one of Poles' first picks? Well, not first picks. He was picked 174 in Poles' first draft. And looking at his later picks, you got Dominique Robinson, Zach Thomas, Treston Ebner, Doug Kramer, who got us to the spot we're in now because of his fumbles, Jatir Carter, Elijah Hicks, Trenton Gill. So really, really bad draft outside of Kyler Gordon, Jaquan Brisker, and Braxton Jones. But after Braxton Jones, who was taken at 168, I mean, you're just shooting in the dark there. But with that being said, he's cut, saves us 1.1 mil. Next cut we have is probably the easiest cut in the world, Gerald Everett. I did a video where I watched every Caleb Williams rookie sack. And I'm not going to say Gerald Everett was in on a lot of them, but when he was in, it was just evident that the play was just dead. Why Shane Waldron ever thought Everett would be a good blocker is beyond me.
Yeah, I mean, again, especially when you're going to have your 2 tight end sets, you got to have, and I get it. It's fun to have a guy who at one point was actually maybe more above average pass catching tight end, right? But as time's gone on, it hasn't treated Gerald Everett well. He's not the same player he was 3-4 years ago, and it shows. And against your point, this probably is the easiest cut we have to make.
I mean, you save 5.5 mil.
Yeah, well, it's just this is just a no brainer.
So between Swift and Dominique Robinson and Gerald Everett, you're saving about 7. Oh wait, that's not right. Oh yeah, no, that is right. You're saving about, what is that? That's like 11, 12 million. I was doing really bad math there. But I mean, that's pretty much getting us back to kind of where we were, our starting point after the re-signings and the cuts. But now we're going to make kind of a signing that people may not like. I think it is something that really lacked. We both think it's something that really lacked in Caleb Williams' rookie year, and that is a veteran backup quarterback. So we're signing Joe Flacco to a 1-year, $5 million deal. Is he the same player as Caleb Williams? No. He's kind of been a journeyman. He can play when you need to. You don't probably want him starting more than 4 games for you, but Joe Flacco won a Super Bowl. He's a respected, experienced vet in the league. Why the Bears decided to run a quarterback room last year with Tyson Bagent and Austin Reed, especially when I guess this is depending on how you look at the Bears. Like when you don't have like winning culture or winning experience in that room, I don't know why. I just don't understand how you think that's a good idea. Like, I don't understand how anyone last year thought that was a good idea. Even keeping Brett Rippon would have helped.
No, absolutely. And to your point, Hunter, I can see how this could be like a polarizing one for Bears fans. But look, it's just simply this. You're paying for experience that you really can't buy elsewhere. Like it's really hard to go find a guy who's won a Super Bowl MVP, right? That has all the it's gonna be you can't just go find that elsewhere. And I think that's kind of the thing about it is, look, as far as it goes, yeah, ideally Joe Flacco doesn't start one game. But having the
Right.
experience, having him in that situation to be able to help Caleb, right? I think that's what you're. It's just it's you're because people are going to say spending 5 mil, okay, but you don't even want him to be out there. Well, what we could have spent that in these other areas. You
Backup
guys didn't really spend
quarterbacks
money,
cost money now. That's just what it is.
right? And that's the thing is, look, like I said, ideally, yeah, we don't want him to be
The
playing a game,
season's
but
over.
if
This
he
isn't
has,
for play. This isn't for play, though.
right, I'll say, like, and if he has to play, you know what? I can think of a lot worse backup quarterbacks, right? You could so if even if he
You
has
could
to
have
play,
Jake Hayner.
yeah, oh yeah, you could have Jake Hader, and then you might, then the season is really over. But jokes aside, look, if Joe Flacco has to play, at least you're confident in him, and if not, you're getting experience. You're not going to be able to spend money on elsewhere. So
I think the biggest thing is like if Caleb Williams goes down, the season's probably over anyway. The point is you're getting vet experience to teach Caleb and help him along the way. That was absent last year.
yeah,
Now
absolutely.
we're going for the big fish. Bears fans have talked about this for a while. Trey Smith, 4 years, $100 million, $25 million a year. Believe the leading guard is making around 21.5 million a year. Now, here's the thing, okay? There's probably going to be some type of signing bonus. There's probably going to be some type of, might be more money. I don't know. But what this does do is it might be for longer. But what this does do is this shores up the right side of your offensive line. And Trey Smith and Darnell Wright played next to each other at Tennessee. So, I mean, the way I look at it is you have the right side of your line. You have Braxton Jones for at least one more year. And then you just got to fix left guard and center. Now, there is a chance that we go into this draft and we need a starter based on the rest of these re-signings. But to me, Trey Smith is the number one free agent that you cannot miss on this year.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, look, and because I can already, some people are going to say after the Super Bowl where he didn't have right his best game. Okay, you know what? It's bound to happen eventually. And also, might I add, the whole Chiefs line was just collapsing as a whole. It wasn't just we're not going to sit here and just blame Trey Smith. Like, yeah, he had a few bad reps, but all in all, Trey Smith has played really, really good his whole career. He's been someone that's been coveted by basically every other team his whole career. And the Bears have a chance to finally make that big splash and add that first key piece that you desperately need to start building that winning culture in the trenches. And forget the Super Bowl. Trey Smith is going to come. If he comes to the Bears, he will be an essential piece to this line. And might I add, still at that age where he hasn't probably even entered his prime yet. You're getting him right when he should be entering the best years of his career. And he can keep getting better, right? If he's one of those linemen that just keeps getting better with age, which, willing that he is if the Bears were to spend this much money on him. It's a move you have to make, though. Again, though, Hunter, we could make splashes in other areas, and you could say the same thing about how this, that, and the third about how they could be coming off of a bad game, or they could be. What if they don't get better with age? But you know what? This is the position you have to make the splash in. There's no two ways about it.
Well, I look at it like this too, Dobbs. Like he's been relatively healthy. And okay, let's say we don't go the Trey Smith route. Let's say we go, let's bring in Zeitler, who's probably got about 2 to 3 more years left. Three's kind of pushing it though. He's playing really good ball, but he's getting up there in age. Let's say we bring in Zeitler, we bring in Mekhi Becton, right? Like you're gonna overpay for Becton because of the year he had if Philly doesn't bring him back. And he's also someone who struggled with injuries. To me, you need to invest the money in the O-line. And Trey Smith is by far and away the best offensive guard available in free agency. Zeitler is good, and I would have no issue with bringing in Zeitler at all, even for 2 years. But the reality is you're not going to find the talent, the age, and the health availability on the guard market that you are with Trey Smith. So I think that is pretty essential to bringing in to your free agency because you have a lot of cap space. I believe it's top 7 in the NFL. Having a lot of cap space at the end of year 3 or year 4 in a rebuild is not a flex. Having the money year 1, year 2, that's great because that's where you're supposed to be. When you have it later on, it's not a healthy cap situation. That's not investing in your team.
No, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's just Hunter. The bottom line, this would be the biggest move for the Bears if they could pull it off, which is why it's the first thing we're talking about. It was our biggest move, but not the only key move.
We have a complimentary piece coming right here, playing right next to him with Drew Dalman, 3 years, $12.5 million a year. Now, that brings us down to kind of tight cap space. We have about $18.7 million left. Now, I will say, I wouldn't be surprised if there's like restructuring going on, if there's another guy they want to sign. Now, with that being said, like Dalman has been a pretty good player for the Atlanta Falcons, and they have Chris Lindstrom, Caleb McGarry, Jake Matthews, Matthew Bergeron. So outside of Bergeron, who I believe is still on a rookie deal, you have a lot of money spent in the O line.
But an expensive rookie deal because he was drafted high. So it's not, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like, it's still just good money.
Right. So this would immediately fill the need of the Bears. You get two, basically Trey Smith, Andrew Dalman coming off the rookie contract. So you're getting them in your prime and you're going to pay for it. So that's good, especially when you have a young Darnell Wright, right, who's still on a rookie deal. He'll be going into year 3, I believe.
And he's looking a lot better.
Right. Looking a lot better. You have Braxton Jones too. That's going to be on the last year. You don't know if you're going to extend him, but this would just leave the left guard spot, which you can address in the draft. But between the first 3 picks, you can get a starter for that money. And while it is expensive, 1, you're overpaying in free agency regardless. And 2, keeping your quarterback upright is priceless, especially your young one who's developing.
Especially you just spent the first overall pick on him.
Right. So, I mean, I think Darnell Wright, Drew Dalman, Trey Smith, Braxton Jones, I would say is a pretty good offensive line, regardless about how you feel about Braxton Jones.
No, I would say, and you know, barring how we do in our mock, I can't promise the fans it's going to be as amazing as the first one was, because I really was in love with it.
I was hyped about it.
No spoilers. But if it's as good as the first one was, the Bears have like a top 10 line at the snap of your fingers, and it's a miracle.
The next pick we have, and we don't got to spend a lot of time on it. McCole Pruitt, give him a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Cutting Everett, and if Mercedes Lewis doesn't come back, it kind of leaves you with like, what is it, Steven Carlson, who's like an end of the roster guy, practice squad guy. Pruitt is a blocking tight end, something that I don't think Cole Kmet really excels at. And for $1.2 million, he was one of the better blocking tight ends of the league last year. I don't really have an issue with this signing at all, but just more into protection, run blocking, pass blocking. Like, that's the focus. We have enough pass catchers.
Next focus.
Yeah. So this is one. Okay. So I don't know if we want to skip this one because I think you know who I'm talking about. Let's skip it right now. Okay.
Okay.
But we're going to go with the D end here. This is Charles Omenihu. Okay. And we're gonna give him. Oh, I'm all over the place today. 3 years, $37.5 million, $12.5 million a year. It's a lot of money, but the Bears desperately need edge help, and he's one of the bigger defensive ends on the market. Yes, and when I say bigger, I mean physically bigger. Like, there's Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa may be a cap casualty. Josh Sweat, you're gonna have to pay a lot for. So the
price went up.
Yeah.
To a point where I would want the Bears just stay out of that.
There's a ton of money tied up in the edge market this year, and I don't really want to be one of those top spenders at edge right now, especially when we have the draft picks that we do. Omenihu could play that role where you're not hurting nearly as bad on the edge as you thought you would be.
No, and like we mentioned the first time, essentially why he fits into this defense so well, right? Like he 4-3 edge, that big run setter that you're going to need, especially on first down. He can also play third down. He has the versatility that you'd be paying the money for. And yes, the same concept as Trey Smith. Like, yes, he might not be coming off his best game, but it happens, right? It was bound to happen eventually where the Chiefs were going to have a really bad game. It happened to be the Super Bowl against a really, really amazing Eagles team. So if you want to use that as your sample size of why, right? If you want to use that as your sample size of why the Bears all of a sudden shouldn't sign anybody from the Chiefs, go ahead. I still value Menahu and Smith, and I think you should too. And I think they would be a really, really awesome pieces to what the Bears are trying to build. So that's why Hunter splurged on them, right?
The payday comment was about Sweat. I was lost for a second there. But yeah, no, I mean, I think my thing is like he's been a good player in the Chiefs system. You have Montez Sweat. I mean, you have so many draft picks, but it's like you don't want to depend on your other edge. You don't want to go into it with last year's situation. I think honestly, if they get an interior guy in the draft, their interior is actually looking pretty nice. Andrew Billings, Gervon Dexter, draft pick, like it's not bad. You also have DeMarcus Walker who you can move around. So I think edge is more of a pressing need, especially with Montez Sweat and Austin Booker there. Now, okay, so here is what me and Dobbs had as the final free agent signing. So when we were deciding wide receiver threes, okay, we were deciding whether to do a cheaper option in MVS, which was like 1.5 a year, or Dobbs brought up the idea of Tutu Atwell. And it's funny you say that because I think it was right before the Super Bowl. I sent him a text and there was some very preliminary talks that there may be interest from the Bears, just from what I saw from Twitter. I mean, that's just, like I said, take that with a grain of salt, that there may be interest in a Tutu Atwell. Now, right now, we have it typed in as MVS, okay? And he's about $1.5 million a year. Now, if I look at the receiver market, I'm guessing Tutu Atwell will how much do you think Tutu Atwell will net per year? Because his valuation, I believe, is like
Honestly, no,
4 or 5 million.
Answer that question. I'm honestly gonna have to look up who his agent is real quick. I gotta see what agency he's with. Oh yeah, see, he's cooking because he's with Drew Rosenhaus. So I think he'll net. Look, it's hard to answer, but I do know this. He's going to get in the meeting rooms and say, well, look at my production when Puka wasn't playing. Look at my production when all of a sudden I don't have to compete for targets with Cooper Kupp and Puka, who are very obviously the focal point of the offense when they're out there. And he becomes more of I don't want to say gimmick guy, but he becomes the third option kind of just by default, right? With the trust Stafford already had with his other two guys. But the thing is this, Hunter, Tutu Atwell is a threat. And especially because that's really not necessarily wasn't the Rams' strength. Like the Rams aren't trying to deep ball you for 60 yards with Tutu Atwell. But all of a sudden, right, with a guy like Caleb, who just can uncork that. And not that Stafford can't uncork that thing, he can. But he's getting older, and that's just not really how the Rams play ball, right? The Rams are trying to, death by 1,000 cuts. So it's like, with on a team like the Bears, who have, or who potentially are going to have the money, and you're looking for a different situation with the quarterback that can really uncork that thing. I think that you can get in the meeting room and you could find a team that's willing to spend, right, like seven or eight a year on you. But that's kind of where our problem came in, is where we're like, well, for what we expect and what we want from him, MVS, yeah, the longevity's not there and all that, but you're he
fills the gap for a year
until you find a guy through the draft where you're getting them for a lot cheaper, where they have a very similar skill set to Tutu. But then also what makes it tough is you're like, if you're like me and you think Tutu still has a lot of untapped potential and that he's kind of just entering those prime years, which he is, it makes it like where you're like, yeah, I could see the Bears taking that move if you can get him for cheaper. Again, if you could get him in like the $4 to $5 million a year range, all right, I'd be ecstatic.
But I think you're realistically going to pay like 7 or 8 a year. Like I could see like a $3 or $20 million deal.
No, I can certainly see teams where he will go to that will be looking to, that would be like 7 or 8 a year, right? And looking at the production when you weren't competing for targets, right, at the same level. I can see why some team would do that, and that's kind of why the MVS route to us at the end of the day just seems to make more sense. But let it be on the record, especially because it's been talked about now, like right out in public. If the Bears went 2-2, just know, right, me and Hunter, we low key cooked it first.
So now, as you can see, these are kind of our, this is a rough look at the roster. It leaves us with about 3.6 million. Now, I do think the Bears will probably enter the season with anywhere from like 7 to 10 million because of the in-season spending and things that go on like that. Also, Kyler Gordon is probably going to get a contract extension. And to me, they're going to probably push it up early because they want to have as much money later into the Caleb Williams window as you can. So we didn't want to incorporate that. I felt like that was a little bit too complicated. So just kind of taking a look, I have it all color coordinated, not the draft picks. Now, where I have draft, that is not necessarily where we're going to be drafting. Just like that's kind of where we need to fill these holes and like where we kind of hope to draft. But ready to get into it, Dobbs? Ready to get into the drafting?
Oh, I'm ready. And I was saying, if we didn't cover it, just assume that it's right. Well, depth free agent that we didn't get into, or UDFA.
Yeah. We have a couple slots on the roster that are going to be end of the roster guys. Now, with that being said, like you can see the draft picks here. This one here is from the Cowboys trade that we do with Swift, but there may be a comp pick, so we may have like pick 3.100, 101, whatever that is this year, depending on if Ian Cunningham gets the job, which is honestly huge because the Bears don't have a pick after their third round pick for 76 picks. And there's a lot of talent in that fourth round. So
Yeah, and that all of a sudden feels kind of like where we would say, give me my running back.
right.
All of a sudden, because we didn't have that. That's not an option we had the first time. So
if the Bears get an extra third round pick, I could see that shifting so much of their middle round draft strategy because it's so huge. I mean, with the way the running back, you could honestly go O-line, D-line, their first 3 picks, and then in the third round, take 2 running backs. Like, I could realistically see that happening.
No, and that's the thing, Hunter, is I know that, and because this is how it always goes, and I don't blame everybody, because let me be clear, he is, I do believe, going to be like a generational player from the running back prospects, or as a running back prospect, I should say, to make that sound more logical. But like when you have a Genty, right, all of a sudden, well, and then there's some of these other guys that where everyone's like, oh, they're the guys that have to go. If you don't get them, you're getting not as much value. There are so many guys that are like mid-round guys in this year's class that I absolutely love. That again, back to if we take care of the line, they're going to be just fine. There are a lot of guys I love that you can get in the mid rounds, very likely. So, assuming because we'll do this more than once. Once we get those comp picks, hopefully, we can. There'll be different strategies we'll go about as far as the draft goes.
Sorry, let's get it going. Cam Ward first, Shador second. I don't see how that's going to go. Now, Will Campbell goes to the Saints right before. So we're looking at Ashton Jean-T, Mike Green, James Pierce, Luther Burden, Josh Simmons, Tyler Warden, Emeka Ibuka, Kelvin Banks, Benjamin Morrison. I mean, I think we should go Pierce again. We went Pierce.
Yeah. Spoiler. Yeah.
So explain why Bears fans would like Pierce. Explain why Bears fans would like Pierce and why he would fit with Dennis Allen.
No, absolutely. Because here's the thing. The first time me and Hunter did this was a lot harder because we did sit here for like a good 3 or 4 minutes discussing, because it is really hard. Let me be clear. Picking between Mike Green and James Pierce is very hard. And I would not fault you in any way if you would say you would prefer Mike Green over James Pierce. But what it came down to for me and Hunter is this. Look, you're getting that SEC experience in James Pierce. And for those who don't know, which is probably everybody, because I don't see how anyone would know, James Pierce was my number 1 overall prospect coming to this year. Like last year's tape was so special, right? For a guy that was coming out of his second year and you're like, oh my God, right? Like this guy has almost every move in the book. The length. The one thing that you still could knock him for is that you're going to say, okay, he does need to put on some weight though, probably to come into the NFL level. Like him sitting at 243, or that's the last update here I have. He could have put on some sense then. But regardless, right, especially on, right, generally going to be that 4-man D line, you are going to want him to put on some weight. Now, with that being said, regardless, even if initially he's not playing the 4-3 package, which obviously you want him to sooner than later, but he still is going to be an amazing player in nickel and dime when you need someone to get after the quarterback. He is built for any pass rushing situation right off the rip. And you just put some weight on him, and I think James Pierce could be one of those guys where you look back at this year's class and you're like, oh, James Pierce was a top 5 guy. Like, how didn't we see it the whole time? I love James Pierce.
He does seem like the guy who's like kind of falling right now. Like not a lot of people are talking about compared to like these other guys. Now I wonder, is he going to the combine?
It's funny. I'm gonna be honest with you, Hunter. I'm out of loop on that. I mean, let me check. He should be.
He had a pass rush win rate last year of like 23% at an SEC level, which is like pretty impressive. I think 20 is what they consider elite. So 23 is really, really good. And he had I guess you could argue, a better year in 2023 with 13 sacks opposed to 8 in 2024. But even his pass rush and run defense grades were good. So I
Yeah,
do.
he will be at the. I'm sorry, not to
Okay.
interrupt. He will be at the combine.
Do you think he's going to be someone that slide? I mean, I don't know how much. I mean, like, do you slide into top 5 with the way he performs at the combine? Like, I don't know, but it just feels like he is one of those guys that, like, the nice thing with the Bears at 10 is, like, there's enough talent where, like, you're not getting the fall off of the elite guys. Like, you're probably not getting that until, like, pick, I don't know, 15. Well, actually, I shouldn't even say that. There's a lot of good talent in the first round.
No, there totally is. And again,
It's just not like top shelf, like blue chip guys. Like, there's only a couple.
no, let me be crystal clear, 200. Like, it is really hard to pass on Mike Green after what he just did at the Senior Bowl. But I'm going to say this too, right? This
SEC.
is my thing.
I would rather
It's,
take players from big schools.
no, and that's the thing is, I think to your point too, to answer kind of a few things at once. Like, I think the reason maybe that his stock has fallen. But the thing is, putting it in quotes, because really at the end of the day, we don't. It's all smoke at this point. Like, I would say, yes, the numbers weren't the same as what they were the sophomore year, but you got to go back to. Well, the sophomore year, nobody knew exactly who James Pierce was yet, right? He kind of came on, and all of a sudden, James Pierce is the number one player. And oh my God, this guy is amazing and unblockable. Well, go figure that a lot of teams start to gravitate toward their game plan more towards making sure that James Pierce isn't getting one-on-ones very often, that James Pierce isn't getting to the quarterback, more chips, more running backs on his side, more tight ends on his side. So yeah, the numbers per se went down, but back to that pass rush win rate, he's winning 1/5 plus of his rushes. He has an amazing set of moves. And here's what I want to close out with that Bears fans should really think about, because this is kind of the whole thing, right? I do truly think, and I think a lot of people who would watch him would say the same thing, is Abdul Carter does very much feel like a Micah Parsons 2.0, like literally out of Penn State, like carbon copy, even though Micah was playing linebacker. Oh, right. When he got his shot at edge right on the Cowboys, he was looking just like how Abdul Carter's looking at Penn State. My thing is this, though. I think if James Pierce can hit his ceiling, there really is not as big of a discrepancy between the two as people think. Because you get James Pierce at his ceiling. I don't want to just think of a comp off the top of my head randomly, but you're getting a guy who can give you 12 plus sacks a year, which is, and then we'll have comps as time goes along. Don't worry. The player comps will come eventually. But all I'll say right now is I can see James Pierce being a 12 plus a sack a year guy. And that's exactly what the Bears need. They need someone who is intimidating, who has the speed, the length. He's a mismatch. And if you put on a little bit of weight on him, you can mix him around. You can have different packages with him. I think getting some weight on him is a big thing. But regardless, from day one, he is a guy that will be playing nickel and dime every single time. And that's exactly what the Bears need. We need a guy who can get to the quarterback.
All right. James Pierce Jr. is the Bears' first pick at pick 10. Now, I think we should try to snag an interior offensive lineman here with one of these next two picks. It's going to depend who's there. Gray Zabel just went to the Rams, I believe, which is actually a pretty good pick for them. Now, okay, so we're sitting here at 39 and 41. Now, in the past, in the last mock draft, we took TJ Sanders, we took Tyler Booker.
Was so money.
Josh Connerly is still here. The tackle from Oregon. Now, I wonder if you go, do we take Josh Connerly? Do we sit him for a year behind Braxton Jones and let him develop? And then when Braxton Jones is there, you got a guy who can just be your left tackle.
It is okay. It is interesting.
It's appealing,
but it's appealing, but it's appealing, but it's tough because it also then makes me say, like, are we in position where we want to? You know what I'm saying? Like, it is tough because that's like something more that like a luxury, right? Like that the Eagles had when they have already everybody filled out.
Bears are far from luxury territory. That's the Ashton Jeanty at 10 pick.
And I think the big thing about it too is it's kind of like, right. We got to see our line coach fully prove himself to the capability that, right, we don't know, right, Jeff Stoutland's in his own territory where you can take a guy that you're really confident in and then be really sure he's going to make that transition, right? Worst case scenario is that Connerly ends up not being the guy that we think he is. We spent high capital on him, and then we have two positions where we're looking to fill instead of, right, at least hopefully filling out one. Is our guy from is TJ and Tyler
Booker
still
still
here?
there? I think we should just do that again.
I was gonna say, I mean, I'm gonna be honest. If they're both still there, it was so money and it fills out both of our needs. And I'm like, honestly, truth, I'm just high on Tyler. I think I think it's a great pick. So
Let's take Tyler Booker here with the 39th. But the Saints took TJ Sanders.
we have to, or we got to reevaluate. You know what? We got to put our brains. We
So
got to
we
put our
have
brains to work.
we have Josh Connerly Jr. Maybe I should have just took TJ Sanders. Fuck. But anyway, I mean that's how it's gonna go. We're not always gonna get the perfect.
We made sure we got the more important positions.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Honestly, like this, he's gonna be our starting left guard for us.
Yeah, we needed it. We needed it.
All right, I will read you the draft picks in a second. All right, so now our offensive line looks like this from left to right: Braxton Jones, Tyler Booker, Drew Dowman, Trey Smith, Darnell Wright. So with the 41st pick, we have Connerly, Princely Uman Jihad Campbell, JT Tuimoloau, Cam Scatterbo, Omar Norman Lott. Let me see if there's better interior defensive guys. There's Derek Harmon, Darius Alexander, who's been rising. Do we go edge again? Or do we take Omar Norman Lott? Or do we go Cam Scatterbo, Dylan Sampson, or Caleb Johnson? Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins are also here.
It's so tough.
I personally have become a pretty big Caleb Johnson fan, honestly.
See, I like Caleb Johnson. I also love like Dylan Sampson. I love too, and Dylan Sampson's also a whole year younger than like almost everyone else. He's like you get 2 or 3 than some of these other guys. I see. The thing about doubling up on edge is that I don't know. It's not necessarily I have a problem with it. I just feel like we have bigger holes to fill, right?
Right.
Look, I'm going to say this, and you might not agree with this, and that's totally fine. So I'm here for the discourse. I personally think though the best use of this pick, and someone who I think will continue to rise the boards, I think the best use of this pick is Derek Harmon. Personally,
you think?
I feel like
you like him over Omar Norman Lott.
Oh, definitely. As of right now, yes. Like as of right now, I do, and that could change, right? Like,
do you think Harmon will be a top 50 pick?
I think he could. I think again, a lot of this also definitely still come down to the combine, and like things are subject to change. But I would say, look, as of right now, from what I have seen and what I know, I do like, and I also like just Harmon is just humongous, and I don't know. I feel like. I just a gut thing off of from what I saw last year. I would prefer Herman right now. Again, that it is subject to change. It's not like that might not change over time. I just feel like right now, that's the direction I would go. But again, to your point, like Norman Lott is also a big guy. He's just not as big. But it's like I don't know. It's a preference thing. I don't blame you whatever direction you want to go here. So if you prefer Norman Lott, he gets the bump because he's the higher on the board at the moment via PFF. But personally, I'm Harmon. But I'm open to the discourse. Like you tell me what you're thinking.
Okay, so I'm looking at it like this,
or other positions too. Let me know what you're thinking. Like
I think. I don't know. Like Josh Connerly to me is just like staring me in the face. But I will say this, Dobbs. I think
Wait. I'm kind of with you.
I understand, but the value there, like that could be your like Trey Smith, Drew Dowman, Tyler Booker, Josh Connerly, Darnell Wright. Like that's gonna be your line for the next 5 years.
I was gonna say, and here's the big thing too: is like let's say in the best of cases scenarios, Connerly comes in and he's out playing Braxton right away, and you're like, oh okay. Like
right.
Now, all of a sudden, whether he's
Braxton's your swing tackle,
right? You could be depth, or you could start calling up teams and say, "Things have money." You could say, "You know what? I'm shopping him. Like, what are you thinking?"
True.
And all of a sudden, you could even turn into a pick. I'm with you, Hunter. You know what? You sold me.
I just look at it like when I'm looking right here, like yes, like we can get a running back with the 3rd round.
The running back can definitely wait, even though I like the guys that are sitting.
I do think that. There's not like so okay, like if I look at the offensive tackle, right, and interior O-line, well, Uh, I just feel like the next, I don't know where the next true tackle comes off the board.
No,
You know,
Connerly, you sold me on 1,000. Like, actually, now that I really think about it, and you kind of
let's
like
do it.
it's actually it is such a no brainer. You're right. Like, especially the fact that he just turned 21, essentially. Like the age, if that can be the O line, still having guys on the rookie deal with the big money we've spent, it's an easy decision. And if the best case scenario became true, it's just absolute money all around.
I mean, I guess my thing is I don't know why. You don't have to play him right away. And I do think like you do need help. And this is honestly like good that we didn't get TJ Sanders again because it's kind of going to force us to like pivot on what else we would do. I think we have a better chance of getting a good defensive interior player with one of our later picks than we do at offensive line.
No, and again, I'm totally fine with that. I think again, yeah, it'll force our hand to. We have to just think a little differently. It's a little brain exercise today.
So we're sitting here at pick 72. Both the Ohio State running backs are here. We have Gunnar Helm, the tight end from Texas. We have Isaiah Bond, Nick Emanwari, who I don't think will be here, Tez Johnson, Devin Neal, Harold Fannin. But if we look at the defensive interior players, we have Deion Walker, Jordan Phillips, JJ Peegs, and I actually really like Joshua Farmer. I think that's someone that we can maybe get with our 5th-round pick, and maybe that's what we can target our defensive interior player. I think this may be the time because we went 3 straight line players that we can go out and go get a skill position player. So looking from wide receiver, tight end, and running back, we have Trayvon Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, Gunnar Helm, Elijah Arroyo, who I'm starting to like a lot, Isaiah Bond, Mason Taylor, Tez Johnson, Devin Neal, Trey Harris, Harold Fannin, RJ Harvey, DJ Giddens, and Terrence Ferguson. I'll tell you right now, my favorites are I like either of the Ohio State backs. I like Arroyo. I like Bond. I've soured on Bond a little bit. I like Johnson. I like Fannin, and I like Neal.
Okay, I was just say I agree with like everything you said. Here's my thing though. I'm because I don't know how people feel about this, but I'm gonna tell you this right now, Hunter. I think, and I don't again. I've seen a few people that agree, but it's just not as widely a consensus as I would think. But the more I watch him, and I'm gonna say this right off the bat. Right, I'll clarify. The number of touches he has in college can be a bit concerning because it can be a thing. But we've also seen so many examples over the years where it ends up not being a thing, right? Like it really is it's a 50-50, right? Like it's like you could take a guy that had minimal carries, they could end up not being shit. You could take a guy that had a lot of carries and they end up having tread on their tires and ends up affecting them. But then vice versa, it ends up sometimes being completely non-factor. They have a great career. But all that to say, Hunter, I think Travion Henderson is going to be really special in the NFL if he can just stay healthy. And I know because, and that's the thing right now is I think a lot of people are higher on Judkins because, right, he's more versatile per se. But I think Travion Henderson has damn near just as much versatility.
He's got a little bit more explosiveness to him.
The explosive. Oh, that's what I was saying. Is the explosiveness. Respectfully, Judkins he just doesn't get close. Not say he doesn't get close, but Judkins' explosiveness is just not on the same level as Henderson. And I think Henderson just fits. You drop Henderson into like any scheme, and he's going to fit. And this is my big thing. Henderson is just a great pass blocker, and you need to be a really good pass blocker to be in there on third down, to be in there on the big downs. He's just an every down back to me. I think he's special. I think not enough people have really awoken to the Travion Henderson hype yet. But to me, I think you could be getting a ceiling rivaling guys like Hampton. Not Genty's a little bit different than everyone else. But I think where Travion Henderson, I think, is a guy where the value to me personally is being slept on a little bit, where I think he's a guy that should be going like second round. The fact that we could be getting him right here, to me, that I do think, despite the age, despite the carries, you know what? I think he has a chance to be really, really special. I would be happy with the Bears going this direction.
Yeah, I would be okay with Henderson or Neal or Fannin. Like those are my top 3 here. I like Judkins. I wish Judkins was a little bit bigger. honestly. Like, I don't know. Like, I know Henderson is smaller than Judkins, but in terms of like the explosiveness, like if you're going to be similar in size, I'm going to value that explosiveness. So I'm okay to go Travion Henderson
No,
here.
you know what I'll say, Hunter, because I saw someone else say this, and it wasn't about the Bears, but it was just in general. I'm in a Steeler comp. I don't remember who it was, but I'm with them. Travion Henderson can be somebody else's slightly bigger Devon Achane, and if you know anything about football, you're aware of what Devon Achane's been doing. Thanks for the Dynasty Championship this year, by the way, Achane. So yeah, that's my guy. But look, jokes aside, Travion could be that for someone else, and if it's the Bears. The Bears fans should be ecstatic. The Bears should be ecstatic. And to me, this is one of those guys where now you have the opportunity to take the home run shot. Travion, Caleb at their ceilings, dynamic.
All right. Now is where the big jump and the comp pick would help because we don't pick until 148. But just to review, we've got James Pierce Jr., Tyler Booker, Josh Connerly, and Travion Henderson. Honestly, Dobbs, positionally, it may not be as good as the last draft in terms of what we need, but in terms of talent, this is far better than what we had last. Now, I don't want to say far better, but like I believe we had Harold Fannin and TJ Sanders instead of Josh Connerly and Travion, which not bad, but I think like the upside here is a little bit better.
No, absolutely. And especially because, and again, I want to be clear, not that he was bad at it. He wasn't. It's just you have to consider talking about Fannin right here. The thing about Fannin is it is much more of a risk.
He wasn't really a tight end.
Well, what I'm going to say is if you're drafting to be a tight end, the jump in guys he was blocking is going to be humongous. And you do want to be confident, especially where the Bears, a team that was real bad at blocking, especially our tight ends. We don't have the best blockers in the world. Whatever tight end we do take or end up taking or end up signing, we got to be damn confident that they're at least going to be an average blocker. And I got to be honest, I can't say that about Fannin right now. As much as we love his receiving skills, I can't say that for sure about Fannin. So overall, I'm already liking this haul better. I'm going to be honest, Hunter. I think we're cooking up a different meal, but I'm liking this one the same.
Okay, I have an interesting pick for not this pick, our next pick, if he's available.
Okay,
if he's available. Okay.
So where are we sitting right now?
Right now we're sitting.
So I don't know if anyone knows. I can't see your screen.
Yeah,
so if anyone so
where do we want to target? Do we want to look at trenches again? Do we want to look at safeties?
I think if we can get our
wide receivers,
if we can get our DI right here, I would say that we wouldn't want to push it too much further.
Yeah, I mean, we got CJ West from Indiana, Tim Smith from Alabama. Okay, so I don't know if he'll be here, but I've heard really good things about Jamari Caldwell, the defensive interior from Oregon. I've heard he's massive, so I'm going to click the first look thing. What do you think his over/under on his weight is?
Am I taking a guess?
Yeah, just over/under what weight?
Let's do 350.
I'm going to say under, but it's possible he's over.
I had to set it high.
340, 340, 6'1", 340. Talk about a run stuffer, a space eater. I like him. We have Tonka Hemingway, Howard Cross, Cam Horsley, Zeke Biggers, Junior Tafuna. I like Caldwell here personally. I don't think he's going to be right now they have his ADP at 194. I think it's actually going to be a little bit higher than that.
No, look, I would say I do think that as far as we are right now, it probably is the best value. Now, the thing I would say about that is he is probably more of a 3-4 interior. But the thing about it at this point is it's kind of like, you know what? We're not really in a position where if we have a guy who potentially could be special, where we could be picking and choosing, we got to take the guy we're highest on. And not that he couldn't be a 4-3 player. He totally could. It's just that obviously you ideally would want to have him just know, right? You nose him out and it's obviously. But you know what? Having a guy that can fill a bunch of gaps in that 4-3, something wrong with that either, even though it might not be necessarily naturally where you'd put him. So I got no problem with it, Hunter. I think that's the direction we should go. We got a guy that can be special at that size. You know what? We can't be beggars and choosers at the same time at this point. We got to take who we think is going to fill the most space on that line, make the biggest impact year one. And I'm with you. I think that at this point, that's the direction we should go.
I mean, I think a rotation of Andrew Billings, Gervon Dexter, Jamari Caldwell, and I mean, Zach Pickens will probably be gone. But or he might be here still, but he's just horrible. I mean, I think that's a pretty good interior, honestly.
No, absolutely, absolutely. It gives you versatility with how you can do things too when you have someone that big.
Right.
Despite that, yes, it's a 4-3 and it's a little different, but it gives you versatility nonetheless.
Now we are going to be pick 174. I'm praying my guy does not come off the board. Let me see. He's gone. Never mind. It's over.
No, who are we going
Kyle
with?
Manung guy from Rutgers. I wanted to pair him with Travion Henderson. He doesn't have that explosiveness, but he's a little bit more of a bruiser.
No, that would have been nice.
So right now we're looking at, I mean, where do we want to look? Really,
We could go a lot of directions here.
we have 4 trench players in this draft and 1 skill player. Jonah Monheim's still on the board, but like I said, I don't know if you want to go back to the offensive line world. If we look at linebacker, safety, corner, wide receiver, tight end, and running back, we have Marcus Yarms from Delaware, Tootin from Virginia Tech, Caden Preexcorn from Mississippi as a tight end. I'm trying to think if anyone stands out here. I mean, we have Ollie Gordon still on the board. I guess we should try to lock it down to like what position we're trying to get to.
I would say, you know what?
Safety's probably a big one. Corner, we could probably wait a little bit.
I would say either wide receiver or safety.
Yeah, I was kind of leaning towards wide receiver or safety, honestly. We have Antoine Wells Jr., Achille Arnold, Caden Prather, Jameer Dyke from Florida, Dean Clark, Keandre Lambert Smith from Auburn, Elijah Clark from Syracuse, Ricky White from UNLV, who I like a lot, RJ Mickens. I know that was someone that we looked at last time. Is that someone you'd still be interested in here at 174?
No, for sure. I was going to say, I didn't know if he was still available for us. Look, if he's still sitting there, I would say that, you know what? All things considered, let me just look at one thing. You know what?
I personally really like Ricky White, but that's someone we can probably get with our next pick as well. So
I think Mickens is the best pick given the value, especially because, again, this was what we said the first time too. Brisker, we just like we like when he's out there, but how often is he going to be out there, right? In the best case scenario, he stays healthy all year, but it's tough to count on that at this point. And with Mickens, you're getting a guy you're comfortable in that has versatility. I think I like throwing Mickens right at this point. I think we're getting good value.
All right, RJ Mickens, you are a Chicago Bear. Jonathan Owens never step foot on the field ever again.
Please. I would say exactly. That's the biggest thing about this pick too. Exactly.
Yeah, literally, we did this so we don't have to watch Jonathan Owens step on the field. So now we should look at probably just receiver.
Yeah, we're definitely going receiver.
I mean, it's the same guys as last time, and then there's Ty Felton, F. Don Chisholm III, Jimmy Horn, Samuel Brown, Dante Thornton Jr. I personally would like to go Ricky White. In the games that I saw him in with UNLV, I liked what I saw, and I think he'd probably fit pretty well with this Bears team, honestly.
You know what?
6'1", 190.
I'm with you on the of everyone we have available. I'm like, you know what? And yeah, he's a little older, but like we've seen receivers come out all the time, and it ends up not being a factor at all, right? Like, yes, ideally you'd like a guy a little bit younger, but at this point of the draft, it's not really the biggest deal. You got to take who you can get. And I'm with you. You know what, Ricky White? I think that his skill set would be nice with Caleb. And yeah, and again, if we sign one of our guys, he might have to play a lot of snaps.
MVS or Tutu,
right? And that's totally fine. Get some time to get acclimated. I like Ricky White right here.
All right, now we are in our last 2 7th-round picks. I mean, this is all depth pieces, I feel like, at this point. Like, we should just be taking, we can look at an interior lineman if we need to. Last time, I remember we took Nick Nash last time. I remember that. That was who we took at receiver.
We cooked with that one too, low key.
We could take another running back. They have Raheem Sanders from South Carolina, who I don't mind. If we're looking at The tight ends, it's pretty bleak, honestly. Um, you have Matavo, I think that's how you say his name, from UCLA. Brant Kuthi from Utah. Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina. The Alabama tight end, the Auburn tight end. You have, or did you want to look at Teddy Buchanan still on the board?
Interesting. I still do like that because my thing about that at this point is we kind of just got to take guys we're confident. And this kind of goes back to like if Sanborn isn't healthy again and he ends up being better for the 4-3 package, like I don't mind Teddy at all right here. I just, you
Let's
know
do
what?
it
I
because
say
like
because it's I think back to like there was running backs I liked, but I think we can find a guy in free agency that'll still be able to replicate the same backup role. We spent a high pick on Trevion. If Trevion's the guy we think he is, will be out the most time anyway. I like Buchanan right here. I love that pick. And then we get to do it again. I think that's a major W.
I mean we have one more pick. We could look at corner depth because I think that's something we could do. They got Tommy Hill from Nebraska, Mac McWilliams, Cam Miller. Mind you, I'm shooting in the dark at this point. These are guys that I have not really paid a ton of attention to. So, um, Jalen Walker, linebacker from Indiana, Theo Weiss Jr., wide receiver from Missouri. We could go tight end. We could go back to running back. We could get Raheem Sanders. Um, 6'2", 230, so a bigger back. Um, maybe you're hoping Roshan Johnson could be kind of the more bigger guy. But at this point, I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dobbs, is there anybody that you'd be thinking of that you'd be interested in? I know it's kind of hard to tell.
What tight ends are still on the board for us?
Yeah. Maliki Matavo, the UCLA tight end. Brant Kuthi, the tight end from Utah. Bryson Nesbitt from North Carolina. Same ones as last time.
Okay. Yeah.
Rivaldo Fairweather, the tight end from Auburn.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. Let's, even though I just said we'll be able to fill it in depth, at this point with who's left on tight end, it's like, you know what? Raheem Sanders, TJ, what am I saying? I mixed myself up.
Raheem
Raheem
Sanders.
Sanders and Travion. You know what? If they end up both being players that can stay healthy at their ceiling, all of a sudden we got that bruiser electric combo that I think that a lot of teams thrive on. You know what?
Let's just double up.
I would say let's just double up. Let's get our guys, and
I will say this: if the Bears were able to get Travion Henderson and Damian Martinez, I would be so happy.
Yeah, we switched it up. We got one last time. We got one this time.
I did like Damian Martinez and Nick Nash a lot more than Raheem Sanders and Ricky White personally, but
yeah, but I also like the first. I actually ended up liking the first half of this draft more. So I
do too.
I did like the back half of the last one. The back half of the last one we were cooking. But I also think there's been some, again, the PFF board's always changing. There's been guys that have shot up a lot where we didn't even have a chance to get them anymore.
But yeah, overall pretty good. So
these mocks will change as time goes on too.
Yeah, we're gonna do probably one more mock off season after the combine. Hopefully after the comps have been added before free agency, and then we'll just keep doing mocks the month of March until the draft happens. So right now we have added Joe Flacco, Travion Henderson, Ricky White, Marcus Valdez, Scantling, McCole Pruitt, Trey Smith, Drew Dahlman, Tyler Booker, re-signed Matt Pryor, added Josh Connerly Jr., James Pierce Jr., Jamari Caldwell, Charles Omenihu, Teddy Buchanan, and R.J. Mickens, and Raheem Sanders. I think that's a pretty good draft class and pretty good free agency. Now, will the Bears do it? I don't know. But I would be pretty happy if this is how the Bears roster looked.
I would be ecstatic. I mean, this is a huge upgrade compared to what we've been dealing with. And we address basically every main need, if not every main need for sure. And yes, I'm not a big fan of not replacing another tight end. Yeah. But we'll figure that out.
Cookie crumbles sometimes. Can't fix everything.
Yeah, sometimes the UDFA will just come in and save the day, which I guess would be in this case. So
that would be huge. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been our mock offseason 1.0 for the 2025 NFL season. If you, I almost did the old channels sign off, but if you like this, subscribe. We'll be coming out with more videos, more lives, everything like that. So appreciate you guys watching. Have a great rest of your night. Thank you.